welcome. We've decided this is going to be the last podcast of the summer, of the season. We're moving from season whatever to season of the summer to the season of the fall or the autumn, depending on where you're listening to this podcast.
We're going to take a short break, aren't we?
We're going to take a short break, but no apologies whatsoever this week for talking about Harry and Meghan, because Harry and Meghan have made the news. They've chosen to make the news partly through this book, Finding Freedom. We are going to talk about that. No apologies. They've made the news, and it's all about their time when they were in the royal family. Justification over.
Done.
But it's made for quite a busy week and a busy weekend of reading.
Yeah, busy weekend.
Yeah.
We've got a kind of, this week I think will be split into sort of a Harry and Meghan belt of stories, and then
Bumper belt of Harry and Meghan.
Then we've got something on almost everybody else in the family to also chat about.
Well, there we go. So that's what we're going to talk about. Harry and Meghan, Finding Freedom. You've got your list coming up in any case. It was serialised in the Times newspaper in the UK on Saturday, Sunday and Monday. And then on Thursday, People magazine in the US had its own extracts from the book. What else has happened?
Correct. So other than Finding Freedom and the extracts we've had, the other Harry and Meghan news this week is they announced that they are taking legal action after drones were allegedly used to take photographs of their son Archie at the house that they're living in. I say house, the mansion that they're living in Los Angeles. There was also
a friend has generously loaned them.
Yeah, Tyler Perry. There was another hearing in the case of Meghan versus the Mail on Sunday,
which we were at yesterday.
And that is a case, essentially, they are trying to keep the 5 anonymous friends that gave an interview to People magazine defending Meghan. They want to keep them anonymous and confidential. In other news this week, there was an ITV documentary last night,
which we all enjoyed, to be
Wednesday
fair.
here in the UK, on Princess Anne to mark her 70th birthday. And
I've had lots of questions about can we see it in the US. I imagine it might or might not find its way onto BritBox at some point in the US, but right now you can only see it if you're in the UK.
William this week, he did that Peter Crouch podcast. He joined them for an episode to talk about the Heads Up campaign, and he also launched the Mentally Healthy Football Declaration. So this is all to do with the work connected to mental health and football, and sort of using football as a way of having a conversation. And we were out and about with the Duchess of Cornwall this week on 2 engagements in central London, where she was seen wearing a mask for the first time in public.
Yes, because all the other events have been outside, so they haven't had a mask. These were 2 events she was doing inside, National Gallery, and in a pharmacy.
Correct.
And we'll talk about that at its...
And you can tell everyone about the print of the mask and where she got it from.
Do you know the answers to those?
It's a Liberty print.
It was a blue floral mask.
Peacock, but almost.
Okay. I was very impressed. I thought it looked very nice.
It did look lovely.
It looked much nicer than the black one that I had on my face. So there we are. Right, Finding Freedom.
Finding Freedom.
The book that everyone's been talking about. Let's do a few bits of fact then. So as we said, serialised for 3 days in the Times and the Sunday Times, also extracts in the People magazine. The authors are Omid Scobie and Carolyn Durand, people that we know, that we are on the Royal... what do you call us? The Royal Pack with.
The Royal Pack, the Royal Beach, we see them out and about a lot.
And it comes out on August the
11th in the UK and the US.
And Omid Scobie's doing his first interview with ABC News, Good Morning America, is that right?
I think so. I think it will be with ABC. But the serialisations have taken place in the Times here and People magazine, as you said, in America. And it has generated, obviously, a huge amount of interest and acres of coverage over the last few days.
All the newspapers. The front page, for example, last Sunday you had the Times was talking about Harry and Meghan and how they felt that how it gone for them during their time in the royal family. You had the the Mail on Sunday saying that we rolled out the red carpet for Harry and Meghan. It was like Team Cambridge versus Team Sussex, wasn't it, in the newspapers over the weekend?
Yeah, so I think this book...
That kind of happens with a serialisation, doesn't it? Because
Yeah.
other newspapers try and sort of spike the copy that
And it is
their
often...
competitors have paid a lot of money for.
Yeah, and it's often the best bits and some of the bits that are going to make the headlines.
Yeah.
So it's probably no surprise that it had so much coverage. And, you know, there is no denying that this book is sort of, if it's Harry and Meghan's, you know, their
side of the story?
their side of the story told by the authors spoke to 100 sources, double-sourced everything, but it is sort of their narrative from, you know, the moment Harry and Meghan first met right through to them leaving the royal family as working members.
As we're dealing with fact at the moment, let me read for you the statement from a spokesperson for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, because there's been a lot of questions raised, speculation over whether or not Harry and Meghan had a hand in this book, did they control its narrative and all the rest of it. This is word for word the statement from a spokesman for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Open quotes, "The Duke and Duchess of Sussex were not interviewed and did not contribute to finding freedom, full stop. This book is based on the author's own experiences as members of the Royal Press Corps and their own independent reporting, full stop," close quotes.
So there's been a lot of debate about whether Harry and Meghan contributed to the book. I mean, the book is, you know, there is a lot of detail in this book, and the extracts we've seen, a lot of personal detail that either, you know,
was given to friends to give to the authors. We're speculating here, and this is speculation, by the way, but this is kind of how these books work, or it is information that might have been gleaned over some kind of background chat. Who knows what they had?
Who knows? But I mean,
but there's a
no
level of
denying
detail
that there is the detail throughout this is, you know, every extract is from, you know, conversations she had on FaceTime in the bath to when Harry first said "I love you" to her, details from their first date. You know, it's all very personal stuff. So if it's not, you know, from the horse's mouth, it's from close to the horse's mouth, I would say.
Yes, and friends who perhaps were authorised to speak or authorised to give this level of detail.
But as we know with Harry and Meghan,
that's how these books work. We should be clear. This isn't unusual. This is how these books kind of work. So it's an unofficial biography, or not autobiography. That would be entirely different. An unofficial biography. Nevertheless, you know, it is unashamedly written from Harry and Meghan's point of view.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we know in recent months, Harry and Meghan, since they have sort of been released from their roles as working members of the family, when they have a problem with something, they say something now, and they have that freedom to do that. And, you know, the silence is quite telling, really, from them. I mean, I think...
As in, a lot of people have said on my social media feeds, well, you know, they've gone and sued a lot of other people for writing stuff about them or trying to get photographs of them. They haven't taken similar legal action over this book, which rather suggests...
They don't seem to have taken issue with this. And I think the authors intended to sort of give, you know, lots of what we have read in the extracts we knew bits of, we knew details of, but this sort of is piecing the whole thing together, sort of giving an arc of their whole story from her joining...
Yeah. It's kind of like a Sussex Bible. In the sense that it's all in one place. Yeah. It's like many different stories, like the Bible, all in one kind of place.
And fleshing out some of those stories that we knew about, perhaps.
With a bit more detail, maybe a slight change in emphasis or...
And it's definitely, you know, trying to give their narrative, their version of events on stories, trying to set the record straight maybe on stories that have maybe not put them in such a positive light.
Right, that's the overview, and we've kept this as factual as possible because look, there'll be lots of people out there trying to criticise us for either talking about it, why are you still focusing on them? There'll be people saying that we're giving the book too much prominence. I mean, we're just trying to be factual here. This is about a time when they were in the royal family and they, you know, there were clearly, read the book, there were issues and difficulties and they have been explained in the book. Do you want to have a run through some of the things that I say learn, a lot of the stuff we kind of knew already, which is what a lot of, you know, commentators have said, but do you want to run through some of the main points that came out in the extracts? Yeah,
so the extract 1 that came out on Saturday, there was a lot of detail about the time of the Sandringham summit and how they felt in the lead up to that and wanting to leave the family and not leave the family, but sort of change their roles as working members of the family, and how they felt that they wanted to have conversations with the Queen, and they felt they were being blocked from doing that.
And they considered going to see the Queen directly from flying back from Canada, which would be unheard of. Obviously, you've normally got to make an appointment to see the Queen, whether she's your mother or your grandmother. She's still the head of state.
They considered going straight there.
They were rocking up to see her, but then concluded, and probably rightly so, that would make matters worse. But they did consider that they were being blocked from seeing the Queen, that people were actively trying to stop Harry from seeing his grandmother.
Yeah, and I think they felt, the book says, they felt on occasion that they were being sidelined from things in favour of other members of the family, and while they realised that there was a hierarchy and things happened in a certain way, that perhaps they didn't always feel that they could do the things that they wanted to be able to.
See, that bit surprised me because, I mean, Harry's grown up with this all his life. Not only has his older brother been put ahead of him because he's in the line of accession, and one day William will be king, if we still have a royal family. That surprised me that they were thinking that why is it... Well, I mean, they were frustrated, shall we say, that the Queen and Prince Charles were ahead of them in the order of priority when it came to publishing their causes, or when they could set their tour dates, or what campaigns they wanted to run.
There was also details in there about issues of trust, how they felt there were very few people in the palaces that wouldn't leak stories about them, how there were references when Meghan was very first on the scene to describing her as Harry's showgirl, how someone said there was something about her they didn't like. There was...
William referred to his future sister-in-law as this girl, which as in... But again, here's a conversation to be had. If William was offering Harry advice to say, take it easy, don't rush into it. Harry's known to be quite, headstrong. He falls head over his heels in love with his sweethearts, and they were worried that he was rushing into this. Now, is it right that his older brother offered him that advice, or was, as the book claims, was William being snobbish? Did he have a snobby attitude towards Meghan?
Well, I think that however it was supposed to be taken, that was how Harry took it, and that from that point their relationship suffered. The book says that before that Harry used to spend a lot of time going over to Kensington Palace and seeing the children, and they were very close, and from that point forward the relationship did suffer, which is quite sad.
And we know, that is one of the facts. It was written about a lot of the time about the fallings out, not necessarily between the two sister-in-laws, but between the two brothers, and this book confirms what we all knew, what we all wrote about, what Harry himself said to Tom Bradby in the documentary, that the relationship wasn't going well and has had its ups and downs.
And then the book talks about how Kate did little to bridge that divide between the brothers, and how her relationship with Meghan never really got off the starting blocks. It never, we know that Meghan and Kate are very different people. That's that's obvious.
Kate was also, if I'm right in thinking, if you do the timing, she was pregnant at the time, wasn't she?
She was. She's got 2 young children.
Yeah.
And
she's in an entirely different place in her sort of family cycle.
But equally, if you looked at it from the Cambridges' point of view, they did invite the Sussexes to spend Christmas with them at Anmore Hall. There were, there were occasions where they were reaching out. So
you remember that picture, wasn't it, after the engagement announcement, the Fab Four picture that was taken by a member of the public, and everyone thought this was going to be the future of the royal family.
They,
and
Kate,
it couldn't be further from the truth.
Kate went to Wimbledon with Meghan. We had
there was something there that Kate had sent Meghan some flowers, but actually she didn't want flowers. She wanted someone just to be there for her. That was one of the extracts in the Times, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think actually one of the saddest things was when, that this is sort of all, these family issues are being aired so publicly for everyone to see. And another line that was quite heavily picked up over the weekend. No, I'm just doing the lot. I'm doing the lot. But how Meghan talked about, she told somebody that how she'd given up her entire life for this family, and how sad it was that it hadn't worked.
Yes, that's definitely their point of view. There were some people who say that we didn't learn very much from the book. There's been a bit of debate. The author, one of the authors, Omid Skomid, was on Twitter in the past 24 hours criticising the Mail for the write-up of this whole row about Meghan's tiara. Now, according to the book, again, there was newspaper reporting at the time about some row over what tiara she should wear at the wedding, etc. The book says it's actually more about when she could have a hair appointment, wasn't it?
They wanted, she needed access to the tiara to be able to have a hair appointment, and there was, the book says there was some tension between Harry and the Queen's dresser, Angela Kelly, in accessing that tiara.
So this is what I mean, this is a good example. There's a level of detail we didn't have before, but the actual story of there being a bit of a falling out over the tiara was written at the time, and therefore there was, let's say, some elements of truth in that story.
Yeah.
It wasn't entirely right, perhaps, and who knows whose version is right here in any case, because this book, you know, is not Harry and Meghan's own words, but it rather says that a lot of those stories that were around at the time and were in some of the newspapers weren't 100% incorrect.
No, I think, and it's clearly trying to put their version of events, however they've got to those version of events, it's trying to put those version of events across, and so it goes through a whole list of things that were written about at the time, from the scent in the chapel, the bridesmaids fitting, to the tiara. It's trying to set the record straight on all these things that have been in the papers.
And did we learn any more about two of those other big stories around at that time? The one quotes, Meghan made Kate cry, end quotes, and also Meghan wanted scents in the chapel because she thought it smelt a bit funny.
I think
what do we learn of those? It all feels. Looking back at this after what the whole world's been through with coronavirus, it all seems remarkably petty now, doesn't it? But this is let's rewind. This is before coronavirus, and we're talking about a royal wedding that a lot of the world was watching. So there was a lot of pressure on them as a couple.
Yeah, and this book was written before coronavirus ever happened, and there is an undeniable, insatiable appetite for anything to do with Harry and Meghan, and I think that for them there has been acres written about them, and to put their side of the account out there is, it will be read, and it doesn't mean that what's going on in the world isn't important. It's just.
So go back to the sort of Meghan made Kate cry, and Meghan thought the chapel smelt a bit foosty. What do we learn from those two snippets of information?
We learnt that there was a scent used in the chapel, but that was approved by everybody, and it wasn't dissimilar to something that the Cambridges had done for their wedding in 2011.
Westminster Abbey, because actually Westminster Abbey and St George's Chapel are quite old places, shall we say?
But I think
quite historic, aren't they?
Historic. And the bridesmaids fitting, there were no tears, but of course there were tensions. There were lots of little
kind of always is with weddings, though.
Yeah,
I mean, you talk to a single bride or bridesmaid, and there's always some hiccup at some point in that relationship, even if they're really, really good friends, which we now know Kate and Meghan weren't. We could talk about this book on and on and on, but what's your view after having summed up a few days' coverage on it? Where do you think it leaves everything? I rather think it leaves Harry and Meghan, as we've just been saying, a lot of the stories that were around were not untrue, and this book is rather reinforced the fact that a lot of the reporting at the time was reasonably, if not 100%, accurate.
Yeah, I think when you end up the bits we've read, we've had quite long extracts. It's actually, a lot of it is very sad. Actually, that. Not only that was how they felt about their position within the family, but that was how some of their relationships with their family played out. So actually, I think the overwhelming feeling was sadness that not only did those things happen, but now they're sort of being aired for everyone to see again.
And we know that Omid Scobie actually he wants people, and also his co-author Carolyn Durand, just wants people to read the book rather than just look at these particular extracts. So maybe it'd be worth, when everyone has read it after it comes out on August the 11th, is to maybe pick up this conversation and see if there's anything else in there. And obviously keep in touch with us on social media, #Royal Rota ITV on Twitter and or Instagram, and we will pick up your.
I think the other thing with the extracts is that they are, they're taken out of the book. I think when you read the book as a whole and see that whole journey, you might it might feel differently.
Now, talking of authors, there was an author who wrote a biography on Prince Harry a couple of years ago called Angela Levin. We went and spoke to her on Monday, I think it was, after the 3 days of serialisation in this country. So this is her point of view. It won't be shared by everybody, but this is Angela Levin's take on the difference that she's seen in Harry between when she wrote her biography on him a couple of years ago, and the biography that has now been written by Omid and Carolyn.
When you read even just the extracts, you realise that actually the pile of grievance they hold, going back a few years now, is absolutely extraordinary. And most of them are incredibly petty. But when you add them up, it's like a great big sandcastle, of tiny little bits and pieces that you feel is not right. And they ignore all the wonderful things they've had, the prerogatives and the chances to meet great people and do the charity work that they want to do. And they're focused, it seems to me, entirely on the negative.
Some people will say that William was offering brotherly advice when he said to Harry that he should take his time with Meghan, but Harry found him snobbish. Where do you stand on that?
Well, actually, having spoken to Harry for quite a long time, the two of us, and also following him for a year for my biography of him, I understand that he's fed up with being the second boy. He was fed up with it as a child, and it was always William first. William would be invited by the Queen Mother to go for tea, but not Harry. So he sort of missed out. And I think that when you're in your mid-30s, you can suddenly say, no, leave me alone, it's my life.
It can't be a surprise to Harry that in the monarchy, the Queen comes first. It's the Queen, then it's the heir to the throne, then it's William. That's the order of things.
I don't think it was a surprise to Harry, but what I think really upset him was that Meghan felt she wasn't number one. Diana, his late mother, talked to them from the beginning about a sense of duty and working hard for the monarchy and how it works. They knew it back to front.
You met Harry for the biography you wrote. You found him to be a real team player, and that's what he told you the army had taught him.
The Queen is the captain, isn't she?
Yeah, you're playing for the team,
Yes.
You're not playing for yourself.
Yes, he said it was very important to him and he loved it, and he felt that you couldn't really achieve anything without being a team.
Perhaps they had a lot to be negative about. They might not have felt welcome in the palace, they might not have felt welcome in the UK generally, and perhaps that's the reason why they went to America.
I think, I spent a year with Prince Charles before his birthday, and he was very proud of Meghan. He liked Meghan, he thought he admired her. They welcomed Meghan. He loved Harry, and he was very pleased he'd found someone who was his soulmate.
Do you think Harry has changed since the individual that you met when you were researching your biography to the one we see now?
Yeah, Harry's changed enormously since I met him. I found that he was charismatic. He had royal stardust of him. He was brilliant with people, especially if they were physically or emotionally or psychologically damaged.
He's still got that now, though, hasn't he? He's still got that stardust.
He's got a mischievous side. Well, he's got very, very sort of a shadow of himself.
So we could talk about finding freedom on and on and on, but obviously the other things happened this week, and as I said at the top, there's lots of it is involved Harry and Meghan. This is not us choosing to speak about them. It is part of it is their court case, which has taken another step in the High Court this week, and part of it is they've decided, and perhaps not without very good reason, to launch some legal action over people trying to take photographs of their baby son Archie, in the back garden, the backyard, however you refer to it, of their private residence / house / mansion, delete as appropriate, in Los Angeles. And you might well ask yourself, who would blame them? This is a 1-year-old child, and people are trying to trespass on their property in order to get pictures of him.
So the suit that's been filed says that claims that drones have been flown 20 feet above the Sussexes' house as often as 3 times a day. Helicopters are flown over the residence as early as 5:30 a.m. and as late as 7 p.m. Holes have been cut into the security fence by photographers trying to take photographs. Pictures of Archie were allegedly mislabelled by the photographers, who falsely claimed they were taken on a recent trip to Malibu.
And
Apparently Archie's never been in public, let alone in Malibu. And the lawsuit cites that California's privacy laws, which make photographing or filming anyone in their homes by use of drone illegal.
And they're suing because they don't know the names of the people. They're suing John Doe 1, who is the photographer, John Doe 2, who is the publisher who commissioned the photographer, and John Doe's 3 to 100, which is any of the above and anyone that's been involved in it. That sounds rather unpleasant to me, that you'd be in your own home and you're having helicopters and drones flying over it. And I think you'd struggle to criticise Harry and Meghan for taking the action that they have here.
Yeah, I mean, as someone said to me this week, having paparazzi try and take your pictures in the street is one thing. Having paparazzi or photographers flying drones over your 14-month-old child is quite another. Yeah. And I think, Harry and Meghan have had photographs taken of them out on the street wearing those masks while they've been out and about in Los Angeles. I mean, there's no surprise about that. They're living in the paparazzi capital of the world.
Well, I suppose that is the next point, isn't it? Like, none of this happened when they were at Frogmore, and there was a lot of criticism of the way in which the British press operated. We are presumably talking here about American paparazzi. We don't know their nationalities, and we also don't know the publications that are commissioning these people to take the pictures. But we also know how the paparazzi work, and it's that they try and get the photo and then they try and sell it on the open market. It kind of, to me, feels like they've got less protection in Los Angeles than they were afforded when they either lived at Kensington Palace or then Frogmore on the Windsor estate, because none of these things happened when they were in the UK. And it's what a lot of people warned them might happen if they were to move to America in the paparazzi capital.
Yeah, I mean, this, would have been unlikely, almost unheard of to happen if they were still in Frogmore. But they moved to America. They moved to not only America, but Los Angeles, where the paparazzi are renowned for being fierce. But I think they're, while the paparazzi might be after them in the street, it does feel a very different thing to have drones flown over your house, particularly with a young child in the garden.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people would disagree. But I mean, that lawsuit has been filed. I mean, no one's, that they will work on trying to identify the people that have been taking the photographs, but we can therefore seamlessly go from one legal action to another, which is the ongoing dispute that Meghan's having with the Mail on Sunday. She's suing them for breach of privacy, copyright and data protection over the letter that she wrote to her father, Thomas Markle. Now, the reason we were in the High Court the other day was because the Mail on Sunday, or its publishers, want to identify the 5 friends of Meghan's who spoke to People magazine. As we discussed on this podcast in previous weeks, we learned from the court papers they decided to speak up for Meghan because they were worried about her mental health. She was heavily pregnant. They thought she was under attack a lot. And, I mean, on it goes. And this isn't even the trial. Can I just point out this is another pre-trial hearing? And
the reason these friends are central to this story is in that People magazine interview they did, one of the friends mentions this letter that Meghan had written to her father that is what she's suing over. So, And
the Mail says, actually, well, this letter's existence was referenced before, therefore we had every right to publish the letter. That's kind of what they're saying.
Yeah, and Meghan's, the Duchess of Sussex's argument, or her team's argument, is that it is not her or her friends that are on trial. It is the Mail on Sunday. And
she didn't know that the friends were going to speak to People magazine, and nor would she have authorised it had she known.
Agreed. Yes.
That's her view.
That's the summary. So we will not find out about that until later in August, we don't think.
Yes, so we listened to the arguments. I mean, I could actually, having been sat in the High Court, I could actually bore you with the 20-minute conversation that they had about whether the Article 8 right to privacy under the European Convention of Human Rights applies to people who live in the US, and whether or not it still applies even though that we've left the European Union, or whether actually common law, the respective privacy under common law in the UK should take precedence. Shall I bore you with that?
Are you trying to kill off any listeners we have?
It was a long morning in the High
My goodness.
I looked around actually, and the reporters, we found because of social distancing, we're in a separate court to the one where Meghan's legal team and the Mail on Sunday's legal team were, and we had a sort of a video screen between us. But I did look around a couple of times to see a lot of glazed looks in the courtroom. Nevertheless, I think one of the key points that came out was the discussion that I think Meghan's legal team has put, that it is a very high price to pay for her friends to be named by the Mail on Sunday just because Meghan's decided to sue the paper for breach of privacy. And that's where we are with that.
But as you say, I mean, this is our, this hasn't even gone to trial yet, and we've had the back and forths, the written statements, we've had hearings. So, when this gets to trial, I mean... And
the judge in the case, Mr. Justice Warby, says he might give a judgment on this particular issue by the middle of August. We don't know. He's not promising either, and he's gone away to consider those arguments. And on it goes. So that's the latest from there.
And that concludes our Harry and Meghan section.
We don't have any more Harry and Meghan news, do we?
No.
No, good. No. Well, not good. Let's move on to... You could
Princess
say to
Royal?
A different type of royal, different generation, different attitude, kind of different approach to publicity maybe. The Princess Royal, Princess Anne, 70 years old in a couple of weeks' time. So she made or contributed to a documentary on ITV that was on last night.
Was so the documentary had been following her over the last year. She turns 70 in a few weeks, and so this 90-minute documentary was looking at the Princess Royal sort of growing up, the causes that she cares about, the way that her attitude, the way that she works, and her sort of family life as well. So it was a kind of
and the famous attack on her car by that gunman when she was coming back from a charity event. It spoke to her current husband. It spoke to her children, she only has two children, but Zara Tindall and Peter Phillips. Her grandchildren were featured in it.
Which you can name all of. This is one of
so
our favourite
Savannah
games, yes.
And Isla.
Yeah.
Mia.
Yep.
And Lena.
Yeah. We've been doing that all week.
Because actually,
we've been practicing that all week
earlier in the week.
So
here's one of our favourite moments. This is a moment where the Princess Royal is trying to set up a video call with the Queen, which we thought was just great. Obviously, Princess Royal's in Gatcombe Park in Gloucestershire, where she lives. The Queen's in Windsor. We actually covered this a couple of weeks ago on this podcast for National Carers Week, when the Queen was on, not Zoom, I'm told, but WebEx.
This was her first official public video call.
And many people might recognise the difficulties in trying to teach more elderly parents how to use video technology.
Can you see everybody? You should have 6 people on your screen.
Yes, well, I can see 4 anyway.
Okay, fair enough. Actually, you don't need me. You know what I look like.
So there's some lovely moments throughout this documentary. I quite like the bit where she was having her sculpture made of her, and she has to sit for it, like you have to sit. Not that I've ever done it, but have you ever done it?
No. Funnily, I'm sure the call's coming,
we'll
but
come into it.
not
she had
as
to
yet.
sit for a sculpture, and they were discussing tiaras and also the crown, which I quite liked. Interestingly, the documentary was narrated by Tobias Menzies, who plays the Duke of Edinburgh in The Crown. So in other words, plays Princess Anne's father in The Crown.
I mean, the thing that you see throughout this documentary with Anne, and she's known for this, is that her sort of no-nonsense, direct attitude. And so she's sitting there having her tiara fitting. The sculptor would like her to wear a tiara, and that's just a no. That's not even up for discussion. And then they're having a conversation about the crown and how she hasn't seen it, but she's read how long it takes the actress to do her hair, like Princess Anne. And she's, I don't know why it's taking that long. It only takes me, not very long at all. And she's just, there's no sort of airs and graces with the Princess Royal. You see what you get. And I think throughout the documentary is this unbelievable sense of duty that she has felt her entire life. She's one of the hardest working royals. The number of engagements that she ticks up across a year is astonishing.
On a par with or
the
slightly in excess of the Prince of Wales, her older brother, isn't it? So let's have a listen to the conversation with the sculptor.
Francis bravely tries the T word.
So we were going to talk about the tiara.
Going?
Yeah.
I thought I'd said no.
I know, but I just think it would look so fabulous if you did.
Yeah, but I've only got little tiny tiaras. They're not really worth it.
Can we just make it so nice? You could think about it again. Yeah. If you do wear a tiara, will the back still be the same?
To be honest, if I'm wearing a tiara, I might do my hair differently.
It's probably a no. But there is another type of crown to discuss.
I want people to like us, to feel that they know us. I know you value your privacy, but I think there's a lot about you that they would like if they got a chance. The fact that you're generally good value for money.
Like a pair of long-lasting boots.
Actually, I read an article the other day about I don't watch Netflix and The Crown, but
No.
the actress was talking about how long it took them to do their hair like I did.
Really?
And I'm thinking, how could you possibly take that long? I mean, it takes me 10 or 15 minutes.
So no tiara is going to be worn by Princess Anne there.
Well, that was just that, wasn't it? That was tiara told, much like Twitter, which was
Yes.
also...
Well, Twitter was, I know what Twitter is, but you won't catch me on it if you paid me, frankly. Frankly, that was Twitter told. And also there was a lovely bit now, Princess Anne, like a lot of people, has got grandchildren and she's offered to do some home learning for them, outdoor style home learning with her grandchildren. And she remarked on how they
share her enthusiasm.
haven't taken her up on that offer.
Once it was legal for her grandchildren to approach, the princess was ready to play school, mom.
They've got ponies and they come over and they can ride here. But they face the same challenges of everybody else in terms of homeschooling. And I think that is a challenge wherever you are. I've offered to try and do some outdoor learning, but so far it hasn't been taken up on. When I was small, we had to pick things and then press them and identify them. And I don't think anybody does that anymore. And I was thinking, might be a good idea if we started doing that again. Haven't seen hide nor hair of them at that suggestion. So
overall, we thought it was a good watch, and actually quite unusual to find something on Princess Anne. And one of the things I was going to ask, whether you thought that because of it went through when she got married to her first husband, Captain Mark Phillips, in, was it 1973, I think it was, or 74, and just the amount of press frenzy there was around this young couple, the Queen's only daughter and her new fiancé/husband. Were they the Harry and Meghan of the day, is the question I was going to ask.
She does talk in the documentary about how there is, undeniably more pressure probably on the younger royals, and particularly in the social media age that they're growing up in, things have changed. But you look at her when she was young and going on engagements and those very first walkabouts, the attention that she had was huge.
Yeah. And actually, I liked the way that her son and daughter said that often she would come back from an engagement, still be in her, finery, and put on the welly boots, go out and feed the chickens. And
she's any question of her slowing down is they don't even bother to raise that with her. Because they know the answer, but that's a real family trait.
One of the big disadvantages of being in the royal family is you can't retire really. Prince Andrew has kind of been forcibly retired.
But you mean,
Harry
look
and
at the
Meghan
rate.
have retired by having to leave, but
the Queen, 94, still working. The Duke of Edinburgh was out and about the other day on an engagement, 99. Her brother, the Prince of Wales, in his 70s. I mean,
now,
the work rate of all of them is astonishing. For they're definitely not got their feet up.
I could seamlessly then say Camilla, 73, also out this week.
And that will seamlessly get
there
us onto. There we go. That was lovely.
Slick. So Camilla, have a look at these pictures. If you're watching on YouTube, as I say this often, if you're listening, then just go onto our social media pages on Instagram at ITV News Royals, and you'll see a picture of the Duchess of Cornwall at a couple of events this week. The first member of the royal family to wear a face mask.
Not the first time she's been seen in public wearing a face mask. Of course, William wore one at the Oxford Vaccine Group when he was inside.
So I'll start that one again. So she's not the first member of the royal family to wear a face mask, but it's the first time that she's been pictured wearing a face mask.
Yep, a Liberty
What a face mask it was.
Face mask with the peacock design, and it was a birthday gift from a friend.
Oh.
So there we are. I thought she...
detail I didn't know.
I loved those pictures of her walking down that central London street towards the National Gallery. She sort of just blended in. It was lovely. It was a charming picture.
And I was there when she went to the pharmacy, because she went to a branch of Boots, which is a big pharmacy chain in this country, and she was going to And actually, one of the very sad stories of lockdown, is the increase in domestic violence and the number of victims from domestic violence. And she was visiting a project, Hestia Safe Lives, wasn't it, where they work to provide safe spaces for these victims.
And she was also there seeing an initiative that was her idea, the Wash Bags Project, which is wash bags with toiletries filled for victims of domestic violence. And we know for the Duchess this is a cause incredibly close.
And the thought about the wash bags is that if they did want to just leave, or they've got just something that feels like home, so they're not without some essentials.
Yeah, she's it's this cause for her. She's done a lot of work over recent years, but we've heard her speak during lockdown and the coronavirus pandemic about her concerns, particularly at the moment, about what this pandemic will have done for those.
Yeah, it's not the first time she has spoken about it. And she gave a little speech, actually. You might be able to hear it, but she said to us afterwards, I'm not sure you would have heard any of that under this mask, but this is the speech that we filmed of the Duchess of Cornwall. I was actually there with a microphone, leaning it right in so that we could try and hear her as she gave a little speech inside that pharmacy store.
Well, I'd like to thank all of you for the wonderful job you've done throughout lockdown, especially, two causes that are very close to my heart, domestic abuse, opening these safe rooms, and also continuing to do the wash bags for another 2 years.
Yes,
thank you very much indeed. They do make a huge difference. I can tell you, I get letters from people saying they really have sort of saved their lives. So thank you very much. And thank you for working long hours through this lockdown. As I said, you've made a huge difference to so many people's lives. So thank you very much. I shouldn't think you've heard a word of that.
Okay, we're well aware that we're taking up a lot of your time, but as it's the last episode before the summer, and as there was so much to talk about the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, this is a slightly longer version than normal. You can spread it out over 2 weeks if you so wish. You can stop listening now, or you can keep listening. The choices are yours, such as the abilities that you have on social media and podcasting. Let's move to the final
Duke
member
of Cambridge.
The final family, the final household, should we say, in the royal family. Duke of Cambridge. A couple of things this week, both connected to mental health, both connected to sport as well. So.
And it's this weekend will be the Heads Up, the newly named Heads Up FA Cup final. So this is all. William has done a lot of work around this, and this is all using football as a way to sort of start a conversation around mental health, particularly men's mental health.
And ordinarily, Prince William would be at Wembley Stadium for the FA Cup final, or this year Heads Up FA Cup final, but he's having to do it from a very social distance.
So, funnily enough, in the podcast, that Peter Crouch podcast that he took part in, he talks about. They ask him about whether he's allowed to tweet, and he says no. He has been given the phone on occasion, or whatever device they use, but it is usually taken away from William, particularly around football matches.
It's a tweet it's on the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge's Twitter feed, but it has W at the end of it, and that's when you know that William
he's often
has written it himself.
Made to stay away from social media.
It's probably not a bad piece of advice to give him as well. The podcasts, having curry, having a laugh and a joke.
It was, I think it was sort of. There was a lot of fun and a lot of laughter and a lot of jokes, and but there was also a very serious message in it, which is about those conversations around mental health and how we need to talk and check people are okay. So there was a sort of real serious message, but done in quite a light-hearted way, which probably makes it more accessible for people to listen to and get the message.
Yeah, and actually the Peter Crouch podcast on the BBC is actually very well listened to. It's one of their more popular ones. So, and actually, if you've seen any of the pictures from it, you'll notice that everyone's quite close together. But we are reminded, and it's right for us to point out that it was filmed in March before the social distancing came in.
The bulk of it's filmed in March at Kensington Palace, where there's a lot of laughter about, gosh, we're at Kensington Palace, what do we wear, what do we drink, etc. What, crockery going to be used, and William jokes about don't steal the silver. And then it's bookended with, they've had a chat in recent weeks, kind of, while the pandemic's been going on, and William zooms in for that bit. So it's sort of the main bit's bookended. But it's a great listen, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
So actually, instead of our podcast for the next week or two, you could
listen to
if,
that.
If you were desperate to listen to a podcast and you're missing this one so much, you could always.
We should also mention the mentally healthy football declaration, which he also launched this week. And this is organisations right across the football family in the UK have all signed up to this this declaration to be more mentally healthy. And we did an interview with the England women's captain.
As we all know, football is the most popular sport in this country, and I think there's a lot of things said about our physical fitness as human beings, but I think we sometimes forget about the mental side of things. And to have someone like the Duke of Cambridge being able to support this campaign and trying to bring positive things and trying to allow, I think obviously the campaign was to try and get as many men, and obviously the use of football and the fact that it's so popular here, to try and get them to kind of speak out, and it's okay to be a little bit vulnerable. I think it speaks volume of himself, and I'm really excited about it all. I think it can be really positive change for not just football in this country, but also for the fans and everybody else in the country after everything that's gone over the last few months.
So a busy time for Prince William. He had lots of people on that call. Carlo Ancelotti, Martin Sordell we interviewed as well, I think, for it. But
we did, and he did a bit with David Beckham. So
he's got some coverage, which is actually what the Royals are about, isn't it? It's about focusing the media's attention where necessary on some things that, some issues they'd like to raise. I mean, that's kind of what they do. Like kind of what Camilla did this week, kind of what William's been doing this week.
Job done.
Job done for them. They're all going on to summer holidays, as will we.
As are we.
They are going to, so to recap, if you didn't know, the Queen, Duke of Edinburgh to Balmoral, not yet, but they're going soon, probably until at least September. William and Kate will stay at Amner Hall, where he's going to watch the FA Cup final this weekend. Charles and Camilla are going to Burke Hall, which is the same house where they spent quite a lot of time over lockdown. In fact, I said to the Duchess of Cornwall when she left, I said, "Are you not a bit bored of Burke Hall at the moment?" She sort of just laughed politely.
And left.
And then went down the escalator. Yes, so that's their summer holidays. I'm going to have a summer holiday if the government will allow me to go to the place I'm intending to go. You're going on summer holidays.
I'm going on summer holidays.
Literally, you're going to walk out of this room.
Pretty much.
Pack your suitcase.
And I'm off.
And fly. However, it's a good point for us to say thank you to you. Thank you for continuing to subscribe, to watch, to engage. There's things we do on this podcast you may like or not like. We're always up for advice and
any questions at any time.
Criticism. Any questions anytime. # Royal Rota ITV. Follow us on Twitter, but not much point over the next couple of weeks because I won't be tweeting from my sunbed.
You say that.
I say that.
You say that. You definitely will.
Something will happen.
You definitely will. You'll have a few days quiet, and then
you'll. I'd like to think that I could have a social media holiday, but.
Yeah, no.
And then you'll see such a beautiful picture, you'll think it just needs to go on Instagram. And
yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
And we will have read the book by the time we get back, and
yes. And hopefully, we'll ask Omid Scobie very nicely if he'll come on the podcast, because that would be a real treat. So
that would be to get his thoughts.
Let's see what he says. Enjoy your summer. Thank you very much, and we'll speak to you
on
the other side.